One of the most comforting beliefs we learn as children can become one of the hardest beliefs to let go as adults. It is the belief that if we are good enough, life will be fair to us. If we work hard, we will be rewarded. If we tell the truth, people will believe us. If we treat people well, they will treat us well. If we do the right thing will happen. And honestly, I understand why we want to believe that. It makes life feel safer, gives us the feeling that if we just behave correctly, we can protect ourselves from pain. But then real life happens. Good people get hurt, honest people are misunderstood, and hardworking people struggle. People who did nothing wrong will experience loss, betrayal, illness, loneliness, unfairness, or pain. And when that happens, the mind tries to explain it. Because if we believe the world is always fair, then unfairness feels terrifying. So we start asking questions. What did they do wrong? Or what did they miss? Why did this happen to them? And when the pain is ours, the question becomes even more personal. What did I do wrong? Was I not good enough? Or is this somehow my fault? That mindset has a name. It's called the just word fallacy. And the reason I think this matters is because it doesn't just affect how we understand the world, it affects how we treat ourselves. It can make us confuse pain with proof. Proof that we failed, proof that we deserved it, proof that something is wrong with us. But pain is not always proof. Sometimes pain is just pain. And if you stay with this video, I want to explore how this belief starts, how it turns into self-blame, how it can make us judge other people, and how even spiritual ideas can become harmful when we use them to explain pain too quickly. And I also want to say this clearly before we go deeper. I'm not talking about this as someone who has mastered it. I'm not a spiritual teacher sitting here with a perfect life. A lot of the things I talk about on this channel are things I'm still learning, still questioning, and honestly still struggling. It is more like, here is something I noticed, something that helped me understand myself a little better, and maybe it can be useful for you too. Part 1, the belief starts early. When we are children, we usually need life to make sense. A child doesn't naturally think in complex systems. A child usually doesn't say, this situation has many different factors. This adult may be acting from their own pain, or this unfairness is not a reflection of my worth. A child usually asks something much simpler. What did I do wrong? And in a strange way, self-blame can feel safer than helplessness. Because if it was my fault, then maybe I can fix it. If I can become easier, smarter, better, more lovable, more obedient, then maybe I can prevent pain next time. This is heartbreaking, but it also makes sense. For a child, believing this is my fault can feel more manageable than believing I had no control. So the mind chooses control, even if that control comes with shame. And this can show up in very ordinary ways. If someone is angry, we ask, what did I do? If someone mistreats us, we ask, what did I allow? Slowly, we learn a rule that may never be spoken directly. If something bad happens, look for your fault first. And this rule can follow us into adulthood. A relationship ends, and instead of simply grieving, we start investigating ourselves. Where was I not enough? Where did I miss? Why wasn't I chosen? Something painful happens, and before we even have time to feel it, we turn it into a case against ourselves. I must be behind, I must be weak. That is how the just word fallacy becomes personal. It stops being only a belief about the world, it becomes a belief about the self. Part 2, self-blame can look like responsibility. This part is important because I don't want to go to the other extreme and say nothing is ever our responsibility. That wouldn't be honest either. Responsibility matters. Our choice matter, our pattern, our boundaries, and the way we treat people matters. But responsibility and self-blame are not the same thing. Responsibility asks what part is mine to understand, repair, or change. Self-blame says everything painful must somehow be my fault. That difference may sound small, but it changes everything. Responsibility gives us something to work with. Self-blame gives us shame. Responsibility keeps context in the room, but self-blame removes context and points. For example, if a relationship ends, responsibility might ask, was I honest? Did I communicate clearly? Did I ignore my own boundaries? And did I choose someone unavailable? What can I learn from this? Self-blame says, I ruined everything. I'm not lovable. This proves I'm not enough. This is not healing. That is punishment pretending to be self-awareness. And I think a lot of us do this without realizing it. We call it being reflective, being accountable, we call it working on ourselves, but sometimes we are not actually growing. We are just trying to negotiate with life. If I become better, maybe I will finally be safe. If I become more healed, maybe I will not be rejected. And I understand that impulse, I really do, but life doesn't work like a perfect contract, as you know. That doesn't mean our choices do not matter. It means our choices are not the only force shaping our life. This is hard to accept, but it can also be freeing, because if our pain is not always proof that we failed, then we can stop treating every painful experience like a trial where we are the accused. Part 3, we also use this belief to judge others. The just word fallacy doesn't only affect how we see ourselves, it also affects how we see other people. When someone is struggling, the mind often looks for a quick explanations and starts saying they must be lazy, they must be negative, they must have made bad choices, they must not really want to change. And sometimes, yes, people do make choices that affect their lives. People repeat patterns, people avoid responsibility, and that is real. But the problem starts when we use only one explanation for a whole human life. This is not wisdom, this is simplification. And often we simplify other people's pain because their pain scares us. If something unfair can happen to someone innocent, then the world feels less safe. So the mind tries to protect itself by saying there must be a reason, and that would never happen to me. Judgment can become a way to create distance from suffering. It lets us feel separate from the person in pain. It lets us believe we are protected because we are smarter, better, or disciplined. We are more aware. But real maturity asks for something harder. It asks us to hold complexity. Yes, people have responsibility and people can be shaped by things they didn't choose. Yes, actions have consequences, and not every consequence is deserved. Both can be true. We don't need one clean explanation for every person's life. Sometimes the more honest thing to say is, I don't know the whole story. And maybe even more importantly, I don't need someone to deserve their pain in order for me to feel safe. That is where compassion begins, not as a soft idea, as a serious practice. Part 4, when spirituality becomes blame. So this is where the topic becomes very important for anyone interested in spirituality, mindfulness, or personal growth, because some spiritual ideas can be helpful, but they can also become harmful when we use them without care. Phrases like, everything happens for a reason, you attract what you are, your outer world reflects your inner world, it is karma, or your energy created this. These ideas can sometimes bring comfort. They can help people find meaning. They can remind us our inner life matters. They can encourage responsibility. But used carelessly, they can become a spiritual blame. If someone is suffering and we immediately say, "You attracted this," we may not be offering wisdom. We may be keeping their pain at a distance. If someone is grieving and we say, "Everything happens for a reason," we may not be helping them. We may just be avoiding the discomfort of sitting with something that has no clean answer. We may be using a spiritual language to excuse indifferences. And I think this is something worth being honest about. Sometimes a spiritual language becomes a way to avoid compassion. It can sound deep, but it can also become cold. A more mature spiritual view doesn't deny cause and effect. As we mentioned, our actions matter, our habits matter, our thoughts influence how we experience in life, and our choices shape our direction. But spirituality becomes shallow when it pretends that every painful event was personally deserved. That is not depth. That is control dressed up as wisdom. Real spiritual practice should make us more honest, more compassionate, and more responsible, not more judgmental, and not more detached from suffering, not quicker to explain away someone else's pain, and not harsher toward our own. Part 5. What changes when we let go of it? Letting go of the just word fallacy can feel uncomfortable because it means accepting that life is not fully controllable. Good choices matter, but they do not guarantee protection. Being kind matters, but it doesn't guarantee kindness in return. Working hard matters, but it doesn't guarantee success. At first, that can sound depressing, but I think it can become freeing, because if the world is not perfectly fair, then our pain is not automatically proof that we failed. Our struggle is not automatically proof that we are behind, or someone else's success is not automatically proof that they are more worthy. And someone else's pain is not automatically proof that they did something wrong. This doesn't remove responsibility, it puts responsibility in the right place. We are responsible for our choices, but we are not responsible for everything that has happened to us. We are responsible for how we respond, but we are not guilty for being hurt. We are responsible for our patterns, maybe, but we are not shameful for having them. And that distinction matters, because without it, we can become hopeless toward ourselves, cruel toward other people's. A healthier mindset is not like nothing matters, and it's not everything is my fault. A healthier mindset is life is not always fair, but my choices still matter. Pain is not always punishment. Success is not always proof of virtue, and struggle is not always proof of failure. And compassion matters more in a world that is not perfectly fair. That is a more grounded way to live. Not because it gives us easy answers, but because it helps us stop forcing life into false ones. Part 6. A few questions to sit with. So if you want to notice where this belief may still be living in your mindset, here are a few questions. Again, these are not questions I'm asking from above you, I'm asking them with you, because I need these reminders too. Do I believe I have to be perfect to be safe? Do I judge people who are struggling because their struggle makes me uncomfortable? Do I secretly believe successful people are always more deserving? And do I use spiritual ideas to avoid sadness, anger, grief, or injustice? These questions are not meant to create more shame. They are meant to create a little more honesty. Because most of us want the world to make sense. Most of us want to feel safe. We want to believe that if we do everything right, life will not hurt us. That doesn't make us bad. It makes us human. The just word fallacy tells us that everyone gets what they deserve. But real life is more complex than that. Some people suffer because of their choices. Some people suffer because of other people's choices. Some people suffer because of systems, timing, illness, loss, randomness, or circumstances they never asked for. And most of the time, life is not clean enough to fit into one explanation. That is why compassion matters. Because when we stop needing people to deserve their pain, we become more human. And when we stop treating our own pain as proof that we failed, we become more free. For me, this is the reminder I want to keep. Pain is not always a lesson. It is not always a punishment. It is not always proof. Sometimes pain is just pain. And we can meet it without turning it into a verdict, not against others and not against ourselves. This is Here and Human, a space for the things we feel, forget, question, unlearn, and slowly come back to.